Good to
You're
see
on
you.
the air.
Okay, this is Live from the Table, the official podcast of New York's world famous Comedy Cellar, coming at you on Sirius XM 99 Raw Dog and on the Ridecast Podcast Network. This is Dan Naturman, co-host of Live from the Table, along with Noam Dworman, the owner, the proprietor of the world famous Comedy Cellar. We have with us, as usual, Periel Aschenbrand. She is the producer of the show. She has become slowly but surely an on-air personality, and it's really, there's nothing we can do about it now. We also have with us Danny Cohen, Comedy Cellar regular, or at least he was a Comedy Cellar regular when the Comedy Cellar was in existence. I guess it's still in existence, but it's not open. Danny is a gay American and proud to be so.
He's a Jewish American.
What comes first, Jewish or gay?
Jewish, of course.
And he's also
Gay is something you can change.
He also makes ties, and we may or may not get into that. Welcome, one and all.
Gay is a choice. Jewish, you're born with, Danny. Don't you know that?
I guess, you're going to have your bris first, right? Before you announce that you're gay. Bris, that makes you a Jew. You're Jewish first.
So, just off the top, this is the end of an era in the world of New York City comedy. Dangerfield's Comedy Club, 50 years in business, is closing its doors at 1118 First Avenue here in Manhattan. The owner says they will reopen at another location, but of course that remains to be seen, and color me skeptical, but I think this might be the last we've seen of Dangerfield's. Thoughts, Noam, another comedy club closing down. Is there any joy as a competitor in your heart?
No, not at all. I find it very, 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 very sad. I thought Dangerfield's was I know it wasn't doing well at the end, and I know that the best comics weren't necessarily playing there anymore. But it was a room that had a character and a feel to it that I really enjoyed. I thought that in a different I don't know. I felt like I would like to have a room that looked just like Dangerfield. I think there was something really classically showbiz.
Well, just for those who've never been there, Dangerfield was sort of a dark room. It had.
I can pick up a picture. Yeah.
It looked like I don't know, like a '60s nightclub or something. Is that an?
Yeah, it had like the candles, lamps at each table. It looked almost like a Rat Pack Vegas lounge type of thing.
Yes. Very romantic feel to it.
Yeah. And then that's number one. Number two, it's a part of New York. Number three, it's really a discredit to our leaders, because we all know that they're going to come down with some big new aid package to help businesses and to help people. I mean, and they're playing games with it. You could have seen Pelosi had this interview that's kind of going viral today with Wolf Blitzer, where she's, obfuscating about it, whatever it is. So the money, they'll finally release the money when they feel that it's politically advantageous for them to do so. And the fire department will arrive too late. And these businesses that are going belly up now, it's disgusting because they don't have to. It's just Washington playing games, and they don't really give a shit, do they? I mean, they really don't really give a shit. These fucking hacks in Washington, when they finally have enough, they pass so much fucking laws. I'm really upset about this. All their careers, bullshit laws, money for this, money for that, a building. Who the fuck cares what they do? Nobody, doesn't affect us at all. And the one time we really need them to step up, when they've shut down all our fucking lives. And listen, we need some money to hold us over. Can you just get us the money to hold us over? You finally have a chance to actually do something with your fucking position, you fucking hacks. Nothing. And these people, their whole lives are lost. And it could be me, their whole fucking lives are lost while these people trying to position for advantage in the upcoming election. It's just fucking disgusting. It really upsets me. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Well, passionate
Am I wrong? I mean, what fucking Nancy Pelosi say if she was on this podcast? Would she tell me I was wrong? No, you don't understand. We had to do this because, Trump wanted this and we want that. And so we're just going to have to just wait it's all bullshit. This is your chance. Give the people the money. Save the businesses.
Now,
Save people. People can't pay their rent. Not just businesses, by the way. Every business has employees. They have families.
What a mess of a situation.
Of course, we don't know. I mean, I suppose in the abstract, you're correct. Although in the specific case of Dangerfields, we don't truly know what is going on and why they're closing. And maybe they were going to close anyway. And it seemed like,
they're dropping like flies all over. It's been the PPP money is gone, and it's just ridiculous. What are they doing? It's not as if it would be different if one side says, no, we really don't believe there should be any more money than goes out. That goes out. Say, all right, well, I might disagree with that position, but if they're arguing about a disagreement, that's the system. But both sides are saying, yes, we want to give $2 billion, they want to give $3 billion. So that's it. So there'll be nothing until we can agree on, it's $1 trillion. I'm sorry. It's just reprehensible. This is why I don't want to vote. Fuck these politicians. I mean, really, fuck them. They really are disgusting. Cuomo now touting a book after just left and right. Who can say anything good about anybody, any of our leaders? Is there one? Nancy Pelosi, Donald Trump, Andrew Cuomo? Who's a good one? Tell me a good one.
Well, I know King Solomon was a good leader, but that's going back some years. I know Periel wanted to bring Danny on specifically because apparently he had a Dangerfield story.
Oh, good.
I have a horrible Dangerfield.
Did it happen on stage or in the bathroom?
It wouldn't be so bad if it took place in the bathroom. Believe me. That would have been a great story. And this isn't even a bad story about Dangerfield. It's a bad story about Danny Cohen, the comic. That's like, I'm just going to shoot myself in the face right now, but I'll tell the story because that's the kind of person I am. It's fine.
Well, here's the thing. The thing is that Danny is always so good-natured and so sweet. And
apparently I have from time to time, I guess I'm a racist. I guess.
No.
I guess it's normal. I guess it's normal human behavior.
So let's hear the story.
Once in a while. I don't know.
But it was one of the last times that I saw you at the cellar because I saw you afterwards. We were hanging out in the olive tree, right?
Yeah, and it happened like in March. It happened right.
And I think that was probably where we both got COVID from each other.
Well, without further preface, can we hear the story?
So I was there. I was doing a produced show for years. Who's the owner? Tony?
Tony Bavacqua, yeah.
Tony was supposed to watch me for the past 14 years. I swear to God, for 14 years, he's supposed to watch me.
To potentially use you at the club more.
To potentially, so I can work there on Friday nights and Saturday nights in the mix of other clubs that I'm performing. If I'm in the city, sure. So for years and years, he's supposed to watch me, never watched me. And then I let it go. I let it go many years ago. And then so I show up because I'm doing a produced show because I would perform there once in a while, produce shows. My friends would produce shows there, so they would put me on. They would do some newer comics, and then they would trickle in, so they'd sprinkle in some pros. So I would go up, and then I'm about to go up on stage, and one of the producers comes up to me and says, "Hey, listen, Tony's gonna watch you tonight." I'm like, I don't know. I don't really care. I don't care. I don't want to know. Don't tell me about Tony. You're ruining my mood now. So it's been, I don't know. It was just in a really bad place, and I didn't want to hear, for the 200th time that Tony was going to watch me. So I was like, no problem. Whatever you want. Okay, go in. You're on deck. I go up on stage. I start talking. I'm doing my thing, and there's a group to my left. They were like 23, 20. I guess they were kids, And the room was never policed. It's never, they don't care about any, you can heckle, you can shoot the comic in the head. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what goes on. And then those rooms are very important for comics because it builds a different muscle. You have the better rooms that, you know, and then you have a room like this that will put you in your place. And this is the kind of room that you die in unless you're like, you have to fight for your life in that room. It's a bridge and tunnel crowd. Everyone's screaming. You have to scream over other people. It's nuts. So I go there, and these people are talking, and I'm sort of having a great time with the other part. I'm ignoring them, not addressing them, and I'm talking to the other part, and I'm having a good time, and that's working. Then I suddenly turn, I'm like, what's going on with you guys? What's happening? And they like ignore me. And they're texting, they're talking, they're switching seats, they're looking at each other's phone. They're completely, as if there's no show, as if nothing's going, they're completely in their own world. All right. In hindsight, I'm like, all right, they're a bunch of kids. I should have just ignored them. But I told them, I said, you know, the way you're carrying on, you know, you're very uncultured. And they went, ooh. And then someone in the back of the room said, that's racist. I said, why is it racist? Why is it? And I started screaming at everyone. I'm like,
left out a critical detail that this group was a group of kids.
Yeah. Who? They could be Eskimos. They could be anybody.
We don't say Eskimos anymore.
Yeah. I mean, what are you throwing around the word racist? And they were like, get off stage, boo. And they all started chanting, get off stage. And then the whole audience, and like in a matter of a minute, they booed me off stage. I said, okay, I got off stage. And then I got on stage, and then the MC is like sort of like freaking out. He comes back, he's like, Tony's watching in the back. I'm like, oh really? Wow. So I get off. So I see Tony is coming towards me. I'm like, well, that wasn't so great. So many years later, out of all the shows, and I've never had a show like that, I think in my life. I've never been booed off stage in my life. And that's when Tony was watching, and he wouldn't pay me. I'm like, it's okay. I don't even want the money. I just want to get out of here. I want to get out of here. And that
I think he should have. I think he should have paid you. Number one.
Thank you.
But that aside, you're not a racist, obviously. However,
why obviously?
Yeah.
Well, because I know Danny for many, many years, and I know he's not a racist.
I appreciate that. Danny.
But I would not have used the word uncultured with an African American group. I would just say that I think you made a tactical error, not a moral error, but a tactical error. Interesting.
Let's talk about that. Yes, it was definitely. You know what? Yes, I shouldn't have said the word uncultured, but you know what? They're uncultured. That group was uncultured. Like my cousin brought potato chips when we went to see Wicked, and we were sitting third row in a Broadway musical. He starts eating potato chips while they're performing. I wanted to punch him in the face. I turned him like, can you stop eating your potato chips?
Did you call him the N-word?
No. He's like, I can do whatever I want. I just paid $150 for a ticket. He's like a typical like New York Jew. I'm like, listen, put your potato chips away. There's a live performance and you're crunching in the third row. And I'm like whispering to him, and I'm like, and then people are turning around, and I just let it go. And I was like, he ate a couple of more bites, and then he put it away. But that's uncultured.
Why is uncultured racist as opposed to you guys being assholes? Like, why what's wrong with uncultured?
Yeah, Dan, answer.
There's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but you have to understand how things might be interpreted. And things might be, anything that can be interpreted as, this is a corollary to Murphy's Law, that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. As a corollary, I would say that anything that can be interpreted as racist will be interpreted as racist. And therefore, I would have let the group continue to talk. And if they wanted to get up on stage and beat me, I would have taken it. And
in hindsight,
I said, thank you, may I have another?
Culture.
But
it was the only thing I thought of. It was like, I was talking from my heart. From my heart, I was like, you're being uncultured now. You're in a live performance.
Uncultured is a word.
First of all, you're looking at this all wrong.
Uncultured is a word that white people use. It sounds snooty.
Listen.
It sounds snobby. And anything that sounds snobby can be interpreted as racist.
Let me tell you where you guys are all wrong.
If you had said uneducated, it would have had the same result.
Dan is positive that you shouldn't have used the word uncultured. Let me give you a contrarian view of this thing. If you had not said uncultured, you still would have bombed. You still wouldn't have gotten paid. By saying uncultured, you got booed off the stage, and you've got this great story that you can tell again and again and again that actually makes you marketable. The best thing you ever did was use the word uncultured. If you had said, you fellows are not very polite, that's it. You'd have actually zero. At least you got a great story out of it.
Well, so
I guess
the owner of the cellar is saying that. Thank you.
I guess you could put it. I guess you could view it that way. But Noam, do you agree that the word uncultured should have been? He should have known it was going to provoke a response of that nature.
It certainly there was. He should have. You might have calculated that there was a possibility that would. I mean, it wasn't a sure thing. They might have, but yeah. There
wasn't even a connection. To be honest with you, there wasn't even a connection between their skin color.
Of course not.
If it was anybody else, I would have said, what? This is not, you're uncultured. And it was just, I was being honest. And it was horrible. And that was the end of that. And you're right. I shouldn't have said that. It's definitely a word I shouldn't have used. But is it the worst words? I mean, yeah. I mean, it wasn't going to help.
I don't think it was a moral error. I think it was a strategic.
Right. Strategically, it did not help me. Right.
I think you have to, I think
a lot to learn.
I was performing at an all-black college years ago, a show. It wasn't pure stand-up. It was Make Me Laugh. Remember Make Me Laugh, the game show? You try to make people laugh. If they don't laugh, they get money. So we were doing that show at a all historically black college, Bowie State, Maryland, as a matter of fact. And we had a box of costumes to use as in trying to make people laugh. We could use some costume. We could do our stand-up. We could use costumes. We could do whatever we wanted. So I put on an old man wig and like an old man jacket. And I said, and I walked in and I said, yeah, you kids get off my property. And I just meant it as an old man cranky. I just meant it as an old man that was cranky. In fact, the title of my album is Get Off My Property, because I just think it's a funny notion of an old guy yelling at kids to get off their property. It was interpreted in a racial way.
I'm sorry. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous.
So let's bring it to the news. Listen, I'm tired of talking about race, but there's a thing in the news now, the guy that one of the heads of, I think it's PBS or WNET in New York, I think it's PBS, is being, there's a big petition. They're trying to get him fired for, among other things, in a letter he wrote, he described racism as a cancer. And apparently that was racist because the argument is that racism is a part of us. It is not other than us, which is what cancer. I mean, it makes no sense at all. But of course, I did some Googling today. Ta-Nehisi Coates is called racism a cancer. Cory Booker is called racism a cancer.
We all have cancer in us.
Yeah. So, but at least he didn't call it uncultured. That's it. But listen, this is the time we're living in. It's just and unfortunately, and it's really quite unfortunate, if you don't want to appease the ridiculousness of what we all see going on around us, people will then interpret you as being less offended by racism, which is just not the case, right? Among any of us who roll our eyes at this kind of thing, it's like, no, it's one has nothing to do with the other, It's just, you can't, we just don't buy into what's obviously just, I think, intimidation. I mean, it's like nobody, like Latinx. Is it Latinx? Okay. There's an article today in the New Yorker. The headline is something like why the politicians are still ignoring the Latinx community. Why the politicians are still ignoring the Latinx community. And I said, my God, this is hilarious, because the polls show that 97% of Hispanics, Latinos, 97% of Latinos don't use the term Latinx. They don't like that term Latinx. So the New Yorker writes an article saying why the Latinx population is being ignored. these fucking elite white people are actually ignoring the Latinx population by calling them Latinx, as you know, like it's as if the goyim, as if the non-Jewish world bequeathed a new word for Jews. They didn't consult us, and they told us that this is the word that we're going to use for Jews now. Or if we impose a new word on black people that 97% of black people didn't want, white people, we're gonna call you. We think this term black people is no good. So from now on, it's black X. And
Speaking of terms,
it's crazy talk.
I'd be remiss if we didn't take advantage of having Danny with us to talk about the Ann Coney Barrett hearings when she referred to
Amy Coney Barrett.
Amy, did I say Ann?
I think so.
Okay. Amy Coney Barrett, when she was asked about discrimination against LGBTQ, and she said that she does not discriminate against people on the basis of sexual preference, and she took a lot of heat because apparently sexual preference, I didn't realize this. It's not a term I use, but I didn't realize that it was a term that not only is outdated but offensive.
I don't find it offensive, and I don't think it's outdated. And I think it's a beautiful thing to say. I think it's a very sweet way of allowing people to be clear about their preference in lifestyle choices. You know, there are bisexuals and they go back and forth. It's what's your preference? It's gay. Preference is a very nice word. It's not a derogatory. It's not a bad word.
Well, the issue is, Danny, is that people say, but that implies that it's a choice.
And who are these people? Like 5 people? Like who? I want parades of people in the street picketing about that word. I don't want 4 people. Where did they get these? Who are these people? Who?
Well, I don't know. These are people that
exactly. They have 5 people. They put them in a room. The 5 of the most left nutcase people that you'll ever meet in your life, and they asked those 5 people, and they were screaming in the room, and then they wrote a report based on those 5 people. That's how they do it. It's all sensationalism.
How long has sexual preference been verboten? Can I still say verboten?
Verboten.
I don't know, Noam. I didn't know that it was verboten until this whole thing erupted. I generally.
But I'm an old-fashioned gay. I'm also not. I don't agree with the whole pronoun he, the, they.
Well, that's because you're a gay and not a trans.
Yeah, but you're not allowed to do any of that anyway. I'm like, don't tell me what to do. I'm gonna call you what I see. If I see a bird and it's a bird, I'm gonna say that's a bird, and relax if it's not a bird. If it's like a peacock, if it's like a squirrel, and I thought it was a bird, then just tell me no, that's not a bird, that's a squirrel. Be like, oh, okay, I thought it was a bird.
Well, I think the point is that if they say this is a squirrel, and then you keep saying no, you're a bird, and they're like,
argue with people.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying, though. You're not going to keep
apologize and move on.
Exactly. Then that's fine. Can I ask a question?
Wait. Can I say something? Because this has really got to stop. So I'm looking at the New York Times from 2002. Just first thing came up. All right, it's 2002, but doesn't really feel like it was like it was the 1700s. New York gay rights bill passes. Would protect people from abuse based on employment, housing, based on their sexual preference. So it goes from the term that the most far-reaching people use to all of a sudden now if you use it, you're some sort of gay hater. And what people on the left, or people most on the left, but don't understand, is that the average Joe has better fucking things to do with his life. The average Joe is not keeping on top of every last terminology as it changes, the moving target, and updating their Rolodex. It's crazy.
And what about you're infringing on those people's rights? Don't infringe on my rights to make you. Why do I have to call you something that I don't understand? Like, if you're going to tell me you're a man that now is a woman, and now, and if you're going to tell me you're a man and now you're a woman, why do I have to call you a woman? I want to just like why do I have to call a transgender? Why do I
Because
call it transgender?
Because
hold on, Danny. Aren't you a member of this community? What are you talking like that
I'm
for?
going to ask you why. I don't think, like, if I say no, sorry, you were born a man. I get the whole thing that you don't feel like a man.
I don't agree with you at all.
I don't know.
Well, you don't have to.
I answer
Yes.
this.
Well,
Why do I have to agree with that?
let me answer first, just because.
That you're born with a penis.
Okay, just
Science says you're a man.
Okay.
Now you're a woman. You're not a woman because you don't have a uterus and you can't do a
But
lot of
that's
things.
not what a woman is. I mean,
so tell me what a woman is.
your gender. There's biology, and then there's gender, and the fact that we've decided that that's binary is something that's made up.
we didn't hold up. That's why I wanted to answer first, because I knew she was going to take us into foreign, into Saturn.
No.
So listen, hold on, Periel. Danny, the reason is, and I don't know if you're just being provocative or to what extent you actually, actually live that. The reason is because it's cruel and uncultured, if you forgive the term, not to. But because people who are transgender have been dealt a shitty enough hand, figuratively, a difficult enough hand in life that they have to face every day. And why would anybody, except out of heartlessness, not want to call them whatever makes them feel good about themselves? You don't have to believe it. Nobody can force you if you don't believe it.
It's the other side of calling people gay, haters or abusers. It's the other side. So
Yeah,
here you are. So I'm just saying, you're going to go as far as to call people haters and abusers and whatever, racist or whatever it is, because they don't understand what you are. So you have to also allow them. You can't take those rights away from them either. They don't know. So I happen to be cultured. I happen to be cultured. I know about these things.
I know.
So I wouldn't do it. But someone from Long Island.
Yeah. So you were just being provocative. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And you certainly wouldn't say such a thing to a black transsexual woman on the street, would you?
I would not me. But I don't understand the left. The far left and the far right drive me bananas. They drive me up the wall.
Now Periel is saying something which
But Maurice is here. We can circle back to what I'm saying. Dr. Shaw has arrived.
Oh, okay. He can go. Let's just say that Periel is saying something that I think is pure opinion.
No.
And she presents it as fact, which is the opinion being that we've chosen binary, and that actually, even that when somebody means woman, they mean to say what you feel like in your head, rather than, I think, what most people mean by woman, like when you have a baby, you have a boy or a girl. Yeah. At that point, you can't possibly be describing their psychology. So obviously, when we first start using the term boy and girl, we don't mean what she claims we mean. No, and at some point, as they get older, Periel says magically it transforms. Oh, you never meant the thing you meant when you said it's a boy. You meant what goes on behind the eyes and the brain. That's just. I think you have a tough. I think that's a very difficult case to prove.
Words are man-made items, and their meaning depends on how they are used. The meaning of the word man and the meaning of the word woman, which are words that were made up by human beings, depend on how they are used. And how they are used differs. Many people use them in the biological sense. Some people, more and more people, are using them the way Periel is describing.
Thank you, Dan.
It is not right or wrong one way or the other, because right now we're sort of in a transition zone where the words men and women, it used to be clear what a man was and what a woman was based on biology. Now that's becoming less clear. The meaning of words evolve.
Trans men are men and trans women are women.
According to how those words are used by some portion of the population.
Right, and
you don't have a right to declare.
Then why do we call them trans?
Well, that's obvious, isn't it?
No, they're just women, right?
Not allowed anymore.
Okay, this guy's waiting.
I'm asking you why? I mean, what would perfectly make sense is you have man, trans man, woman, trans woman, because I get that. But if you say trans women are women, then Why are we still talking about trans women?
Because they're different. I mean,
Trans.
that argument I don't necessarily agree with, because why would we say a black woman? Black women are women, but we have different types of women. So it's okay to have different types of women.
Okay, maybe you're right. Go ahead.
Gender, I just want to say this. Can I say this? Gender identity is different than biological sex. Okay? That's what I'm trying to...
Nobody questions anybody's gender identity. Danny's not questioning anybody's gender identity.
I think a lot of people, I think we are a very fat, privileged, spoiled country, and people have lost their minds. They're looking for any little word to hang on to for power so they can feel like they're special. You're fat and you're American. That's all, and you're spoiled. We are waiting for a takeover. If another country decided to come in and come at us with war, we would all be dead in 12 minutes. We cannot fight for our lives. Maybe I'm living in a bubble. I'm New York. Maybe the down south, they're all in the army. They're all fighting for our country. So it's a whole different ballgame. But
can I just add
my group of people?
I have to let him in. I'm letting him in.
Just let him wait for a minute. I want to add for the haters out there. And I could actually back this up. In my years dealing with people who were trans, before anybody was doing such a thing, or let's say before there was any pressure to do such a thing, I always referred to them, it was trans women I was dealing with, I always referred to them as women, even behind their backs. Even when I was speaking to them behind their backs, out of respect, I always said she. I would have like people around me who would say he. And I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, so I'm not reflecting anything about my behavior when I say this. I'll pat myself on the back. I think I've always been pretty far ahead of my peers when it came to an attitude about trans stuff. But again, that doesn't mean I have to swallow each and every single new PC concept that comes down the pike, even if to the point where it's leaving planet Earth. I mean, it's just, it's just not the case that when somebody describes somebody as male or female or a woman or a man, that they mean gender identity. You can mean gender identity.
All right.
You need a new term for gender identity.
Okay. Hold on.
Stop it.
And we have with us, connecting to...
The doctor has arrived.
Maurice Shaw.
Hello, Dr. Shaw.
Hello.
Hey,
I'm
Doc.
Periel. Nice to meet you.
Let me give him an appropriate introduction. We're big on intros on this show. Dr. Maurice Shaw is a pharmacist and a stand-up. There's a combination. Well, we've seen lawyer stand-ups aplenty, but pharmacist stand-ups are a rare breed. His YouTube channel, RX Comedy, has 1.4 million views, and he performs mainly, according to this, in the Midwest. Welcome, Dr. Shaw.
Thanks for having me. How are you guys?
We are fine. Some of us are wondering when pharmacists became doctors.
Several years ago, they switched it to a 4-year instead of a 2-year. So pharmacy school is 4 years now. So then now you have a doctorate. So
It's a doctorate of pharmacology, right?
yes, ma'am.
Are you allowed to fill your own prescriptions?
No, but I have.
Wow. All right. So what are we talking about here?
Well, the thing with what do we call you, Dr. Shaw, Maurice?
Yeah, you can call me Dr. Shaw, Maurice. Most of my customers, they forget my name and just call me Marcus. So whatever you want.
Well,
Some people call me Maurice.
We just finished up a discussion about calling people what they wish to be called in the context of transgender. So this is we do believe in calling people what they prefer to be called on this show.
Okay, well you can call me Dr. Shaw.
It is. Dr. Shaw was fired from Walgreens for doing stand-up comedy, at least according to, that can't be right. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was let go for the comedy. It was a legal matter that we both decided to resolve, and that issue is now in the past. So I can't really talk about that issue anymore. But both parties just resolved our issues.
Okay, well, that's a dud.
Well, that was going to be the basis of our conversation. We better switch. Think fast, Naturman.
Well, let's talk about COVID.
Yes.
So,
Are you still a practicing pharmacist?
Yes, I was working at CVS, but I put in my 2 weeks notice because it's too crazy, too hectic, too understaffed, too many crazy Karens.
Well, I cannot hear.
Whoa! God, he said Karens. That's not nice. Go ahead, Dan.
I cannot hear the word CVS without thinking fuck CVS, because that's a joke. I'm not going to do his joke, but John Laster has a joke about fuck CVS, and that's all I'll say, because I don't want to do his joke without authorization. But I don't know if you're familiar with John Laster.
Yeah, I'm familiar with him, not with that particular joke, but yeah, CVS is a terrible place to work.
I don't know anything about CVS. It's a terrible place to work, but I just know John Laster's joke about fuck CVS.
You know, I don't like the term Karen. I got to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we've had this discussion.
I don't like it.
What about
Why
you,
not?
Periel?
I don't like it because I think it's normalizing exactly what we're trying to get away from in society, which is to say that it's okay to disparage a group of people based on their color.
You can have a black Karen.
Well, no, you can't. And I know it's not like I don't know the type that you're referring to, but it does now, when we're more conscious of it than ever, the fact that we're so excitable about any kind of generalization about anybody, even if we have one big exception, which is, well, you can say what you want about white women.
Well, wait a second. It's not just white women.
Well, that's what Karen is.
It's a particular kind of a white woman.
All right, and is to me, I wouldn't want to be the attorney who had to defend that line of that structure of logic. If I don't mind it in a joke or whatever, and I actually don't, like in an everyday conversation, I don't mind it. But I do notice ever since the mayor of Chicago, was it Lightfoot? Is that her name? She
Yes.
responded to somebody who criticized her politically. Say, enough of you, Karen. That's when I turned the corner and said, you know what? There's something wrong with that. When it's actually become so normalized that a politician can use it as a comeback in the public, upper levels of public sphere. Like there's something. We've gone too far with this. This isn't a comedian anymore saying Karen. I don't care about that, or I don't care about. But this is people actually kind of saying, you know what? It is okay to just describe people by their immutable characteristics, and that should be enough to tell you everything you need to know about them. Well, if I'll say that, he was a Leroy, you know what I mean? I mean, imagine, he was a Hesh, a fucking Hesh, that fucking Jaime. I mean, we could conjure up a perfectly realistic stereotype of what all these terms might mean in real life, right? And wouldn't offend me, but in polite company, there's something, I think we're heading down the wrong path if we're trying to really get away from this stuff and become one people. I think it's a bad idea. I hope you don't take this personally, Maurice, because it's totally acceptable to say Karen in 2020. I'm not denying it.
Maybe it's acceptable because they're the majority. So
Huh?
you can poke fun at the majority of the people. The minorities, they're the ones you can't poke at.
Yeah, well, that's true, and a lot of people say that argument, and there is truth to that argument in the sense that you can say whatever you want about
A white man,
Warren Buffett,
right?
and you can't hurt the guy,
But
So
that's the same thing. I mean,
no, but that is not but see, that's a very dangerous argument, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
I haven't even made it yet.
No, but this whole punching down, punching up thing is dangerous, because what it's subtly doing is saying that this is not actually about principle here. This is about pragmatism. It is, what we're saying here is that the problem really isn't generalizing people by the color of their skin. That's okay. And it might even be valid. What we're against here is simply the fact that when these people do it to those people, they have power over them so they can hurt them. But actually, we have no problem theoretically with the notion of it. Now that is not what we grew up being taught. What we grew up being taught was that there was something fundamentally incorrect, immoral, and illogical about judging people by the color of their skin. Period. End of story. And yes, it can also manifest itself in some very dangerous outcomes when the people doing it are powerful and the people at the other end of it are weak. But that's not the point. It's also ugly when I say it to LeBron James, right? I mean, he's rich and powerful. It's just ugly. We used to understand that even though it's ugly, you could also joke with it a little bit. And among adults, we could also enjoy the jokes, right? So we do enjoy the jokes. And we used to be able to hold two things in our head at once because we believed that intent mattered and we could judge vibe and we felt we were layered individuals who could manage both. But there is no room for that stuff anymore by the new rules. Everything's based on a technicality. You could have all the good intentions in the world, nobody cares. And so I don't know. I think I could be wrong. I have this reflex now when I hear something that
But
Karen
is also.
Can we allow Maurice to respond?
Yeah, please.
Very long.
And Periel jumping in and taking is very Karen-ish of her. I will concede. But go ahead.
No, I want to hear her point.
But I would like to get it.
I'll keep it brief. It's about privilege and entitlement. It just happens. So it's not just about white women. It's about this sort of idea of white women, right and rightly so, they have historically had this position of privilege, and then they think they're fucking entitled. And so that's really where it came from.
Yeah, but it's a stereotype. And you're embracing a stereotype. And if you want to say here, actually, let's go on record and look in the camera and say, all stereotypes are based on truth, and this is one of them. Go ahead, say that.
I'm not going to say that.
Okay, well, that's something. You can't have it both ways. If you want to say that, I'll say, go ahead, say Karen. Say what you want. But that's the point, that you're not going to say that. What you're going to say is, no, stereotypes are not based on truth. Only that stereotype is based on truth.
No, I'm not going to say that.
Then tell me all stereotypes are based on truth.
I would imagine that most stereotypes have some truth to them.
So which one? So the cheap Jews and the criminal element. Like what? Where do you want? This is why I'm saying. Where do you want to go with this? Or are we just going to pretend? Or we're going to pretend that the logic I'm saying is just like we're not intelligent people and nobody ever goes down this path logically. If you want to say all stereotypes are based on truth, then I'm fine with saying Karen.
I just said I would imagine that most stereotypes have some truth to them.
Okay, then go ahead. So let's talk about the Jews. Which of the Jewish stereotypts is true, Periel?
Why don't we talk about
now, Maurice? You go ahead, Maurice. Which of the Jewish stereotypes is true?
Actually, as a little kid, I played in a Jewish basketball league. I was the leading scorer, rebounder, assist, and block shots. So they all do suck at basketball. So I will.
And they can't jump.
What about the great Dolph Shays?
No, like with Karen, for me, like especially like, because most of my audience is pharmacy people. So when I say I give an example or tell a joke about a Karen, in my instance, like the person could be black, but when I say Karen, they, like she said, they're like, okay, here's an entitled person that feel like they can just call corporate and think that their prescription should go before everybody else. So I guess I get what you're saying, that Karen is probably tied to a white woman with the hair cut like this that has that sense of entitlement. But I guess until now, I never realized that Karen's was just specifically for white women. It was that kind of like women who think that they have a sense of entitlement. What
about the term sexual preference? Are you offended by that? If I say Danny's sexual preference is men, people identify. Yeah. Well, you see, there you go. This is what's so dangerous, because apparently I didn't know this either, but Amy Coney Barrett got in trouble today because she used the term sexual preference, and apparently this is no longer an acceptable term. So it's a wacky world. Listen, to be honest, Maurice, I'm just trying to keep the show a little provocative and interesting. I don't really care. I certainly don't care when you say Karen. I do mean when I say about when the mayor of Chicago said it. It did bother.
Wait, so can we? I know. I mean, maybe the mayor of Chicago, it's not that polite to be saying that. But Maurice, so is it just fucking mayhem in the pharmacies right now? Are people just going ballistic?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because you're understaffed, so a lot of times it's just me and one technician, and now they got this thing where you have to go grocery shop for the customers, so they come through the fucking drive-through. You think it's a prescription, it's a grocery list, like organic tampons, baby food, cereal. So, you know, I went to school for 8 years, and I'm walking around CVS fucking grocery shopping for people. And, you know, everybody's screaming. And you have to do it because it's COVID. So then people want flu shots. The phone won't stop fucking ringing. Doctors calling. Now pharmacists can immunize kids. So you got to give little Timmy a shot, and he's scared of a needle, and he's running around the fucking store. So
when are these Karens going to get their fucking menopause already?
No, they're all they want is their Xanax and their pain pills.
Wait, so you guys before were not allowed to immunize kids, but now because of COVID you are, but none of you are actually trained to do that?
That is correct. We could do kids 10 and up, but now with COVID and the hopes of the new vaccine, it's 3 and up, but it hasn't really been any training because there's no time yet. So,
That's
I mean,
insane.
Giving a shot is giving a shot, but also there needs to be some training, like how do you give a shot to a kid that's like screaming, and the needle sizes aren't really the same because some of the needles we use in adults are like this long. You don't want to use that in a kid. And so.
But they haven't given you those, or they don't train. That's insane.
Well, they just assume that we're pharmacists. We'll figure it out, basically.
Well, what the hell did you do in 4 years of school? You didn't learn how to give a shot to a kid? What the fuck?
I don't know.
They really have to train, like, open a book and figure out how to give it. It's like, we have to train them? You're a fucking expert. You're a doctor. Go to the fucking Google and I'll tell you. You know what? Hold on for 5 minutes. I'm going to tell you exactly how to give a shot to a kid, all right? Well, I'll get back to you.
It's not so much the administration, but like we don't have access to kids' records. So like, you know, when kids, they get a lot of shots and they come in series. So if someone just walks in the pharmacy with 4 kids, like, hey, my son needs this shot, I can't really tell if this is the appropriate shot because I don't have their fucking history.
No, giving a shot to somebody is something that requires at least a little bit of actual practice.
Pharmacists are trained in that.
You can read how to give a shot to somebody. That's kind of like reading how to drive a car. It'll only take you so far. You actually have to do it.
I'm half kidding. I mean, I had the best shot I've ever had in my life from the pharmacist at the local Dwayne Reed in Ardsley. It was an amazing shot. Huh?
Why?
Because it was a happy ending. No, it's just because it was totally painless.
Well, you'll know it's a good shot if you don't actually come down with the disease that it's supposed to protect you against. I mean, you know that's like you know somebody rating a good colonoscopy. You know, you don't know that, you were asleep.
Yeah, well, okay, but I'm saying
for all you know, they were playing video games while you were out on propofol.
I mean, to the extent that pediatricians, for instance, are trained on best practices on how to control a kid who's, you know, scared or squirming or whatever it is, then yeah, of course, pharmacists should get the benefit of that training too.
Pediatricians don't give vaccines either. Nurses give vaccines.
No, pediatricians do. Doctors know how to give.
Knows how to do it. What? So
I've had shots from doctors.
Pediatricians don't give vaccines.
I don't like calling
There's no rule that pediatricians don't give vaccines. They get the nurses to do it because it's efficient. But growing up, I had shots tons of times from my pediatrician.
That was like 100 years ago.
Whatever. There's no. Are you saying that doctors are not trained to give vaccinations?
I'm not saying they're not trained to. I'm saying they generally do not give vaccines.
Yeah, they don't give it usually.
Maurice, is your comedy pharmaceutical in nature? You say you perform for a lot of pharmaceutical groups. Your comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I perform at a lot of conventions, more so than pharmaceutical companies. The pharmacy conventions, is a lot of the pharmacists there. Most pharmacists are retail pharmacists, so they get kind of my jokes of what it's like working in, you know, like a CVS or any retail setting where it's hectic, and kind of relating kind of like just my journey of somebody who worked on the west side of Chicago, the south side of Chicago. I worked in an all Hispanic area and I don't even know Spanish. I worked at a pharmacy in Chinatown. I don't know Chinese. And kind of just my whole journey of working with different cultures and kind of to where I'm at, it's just kind of interesting because I've also done a lot of health initiatives. Like I started a Black barbershop health initiative to try to reduce health disparities in the African American community, where people could just come into a barbershop and have someone take their blood pressure, and then I would come and counsel and talk to them and then coordinate that with doctors so we could get them appropriate care. So I like to incorporate comedy, but also kind of like what I'm doing from a health initiative aspect.
That's
I
amazing.
like that story. I think that's great.
What do you call like a middle-aged difficult Asian lady? You guys must have a term for that.
I don't have any of those really.
Listen, I want to tell you guys something. So, you know, I'm happy about this podcast because I'm right about almost everything, and something happened in the news today, and I'm kind of right about this too. I'm going to show our host disabled screen sharing. This is why it pays to be a little bit early, Periel. All right, unless it's going to be instant, I'm just going to.
It's done. It's done.
Well, Periel's gotten quick at that because she always forgets. All right, so where is the thing? So you see the headline here. Europe overtakes U.S. in new cases of COVID-19. And it says here, the U.S., where is it? October, 7-day period, Europe had 152 cases for every million residents, while the U.S. had 49, what am I reading here? 150 for every million residents. So Europe is 152 per million and the US is now 150. We have 2 cases fewer per million people than Europe does. And that includes, of course, Europe has Germany in it, which has very low COVID and very disciplined practices. So I think to a fair-minded person without regard to politics would have to say that it becomes difficult to argue that the absence of Trump is the main driver of our COVID situation when Europe is worse. Am I incorrect here?
You know what I have a problem with? I have a problem with this. They never tell you out of how many people that are taking the tests, because I don't know how many people are taking the tests.
Well, that was
taking tests there than here.
Yeah, no, that was a valid point, but I think it now at this point testing is pretty evened out. Testing is pretty ubiquitous all around now for people who want it. If anything, I don't know. I mean, apparently the United States has given the most tests. It's a decent question, but whatever it is, no matter how that ripples through it, it's actually an interesting question. Even if it makes a slight difference, we're very close. Europe and America are basically neck and neck in the actual number of cases, meaning that whatever Trump did wrong, I'm sure it's had some effect, but in the end, it's just delaying. It seems to be just delaying the inevitable. Now it's better to get the inevitable later in the cycle than earlier because we have better therapeutics, more experience, fewer people are going to die getting COVID. The chance of dying a year into COVID is going to be much less than the chance of dying from one of the first few cases of COVID because there's so much more experience now and so much better ways to take care of it. But in the end, it's spreading in Europe just like it's spreading here. So what did we do wrong? I don't know.
I don't think we did anything wrong.
Well, I mean, it certainly takes the oomph. It takes the oomph out of the case. In some
Didn't
way.
Trump strip the CDC of control of that data? So like, where's the data coming from? Because they were reporting how many people had all those cases, and he like stripped them of their power. I knew a couple months ago.
No, I don't think that's right. I think we have good stats on America and Europe. But look,
what are the prescriptions that are being given for COVID cases? Do you give out prescriptions? Or is that all done in the hospital?
We actually had to thoroughly screen all the hydroxychloroquine prescriptions because physicians were just calling it in for themselves, their family members.
Oh my God.
So like we could only give a certain quantity. They had to have diagnosis codes that they were actually using it for rheumatoid arthritis. So we were actually ran out because everybody was just getting it from their doctors and hoarding it. And people who actually had rheumatoid arthritis couldn't get it. So it actually, we had to do a lot of screening and we rarely gave it out after a while.
Periel says, "Oh my God." Periel says, "Oh my God" to every common sense fact you throw at her. Of course, they're going.
Wait a second. I hate admitting that you're right, but you said this months ago.
I know, and you attacked me for it.
And I was like, no one was like, the doctors are just going to all take it for themselves. And I was like, that's insane. They are not.
I said, no, I said they're going to take it for their families.
Yes.
We're talking about masks.
And
I said N95 masks. They're going to grab a few for their family. They would not do it. I said, grow up. They're people.
However, I always enable screen sharing. I mean, why don't you talk about, like, most of the fucking time you can share things on the screen, and like a couple of times I forget, and you always call that out.
Listen, I want to tell everybody something because I've had, thoughts about maybe running for office one day, and I know that this podcast has ended that chance. But a lot of what I say is just to try to keep people, like, I don't know, interested, and maybe keep it a little, get people mad a little bit, or be provocative, or to be interesting, be devil's advocate. I mean, I don't want to say that I say things I don't believe in at all, but I say things that I think are worth talking about, and I don't really know how I feel about Karen, but it's an interesting conversation, right? It is worth talking about.
The other thing is, first of all, I think you should run for office. The other thing is that I let everybody in at 7:01, and Noam goes, "Why are we so late today, Periel?"
He is irascible. No one's going to argue that point.
7:01.
By the way, is
I just add something that I wanted to that I haven't read in the news, but that I know very well what happened, because they were pointing figures at the Hasidic communities and the Hasidic Jews, that they're super spreaders, and the numbers went up. And I just want to say that before Rosh Hashanah, before the holiday, all these Orthodox Jews took a lot of tests to find out if they were sick or not, so if they can have their family members over for the holidays and what the holidays were going to be like. So they took a lot of tests, and there were spikes in my area. I'm in red zone. I'm in Midwood, but in all my area, in this area, in Borough Park, the neighborhood, there were spikes, and not because of any other reason, but because they cared enough to take tests, and a lot of them were positive, and a lot of them didn't have to go to the hospital, but they were positive. And so right there, it's about taking tests. Who's taking tests? How many are taking tests? And out of the tests, who's negative and who's positive?
I don't think that's right, Danny.
Really?
Because I think in some of those communities, the numbers were up to like 7% positive rates. And I think if you were to increase the number of tests, normally you would see the positive rate go down, because you'd start testing more and more people who are like, I don't have COVID, like who have no symptoms and no exposure. Like, who gets tested? People who somehow think there's some chance they might have it. So when you see a positive rate go up to 7%,
they all have it. They go to shul. They probably all have it. Like church-going people. If you go to church, you're going to go.
Listen, I'm torn about this, because I have the reflex. I feel bad for them, and I know. Listen, they were getting the measles. All right, we know their mentality. I don't have any bad feelings towards them, but they live kind of by their own rules, and they're endangering their loved ones. I don't really feel I understand what makes them take it. Certainly not all of them. I've been reading about it. Like, I was reading the Chabad website. I was curious about it, and there was some pretty strong language there about it. People ought to take precautions and blah blah blah. I mean, they were being very responsible. But then at the same time, there was one page which went into this whole Talmudic discussion of wearing a mask, whether it was a garment, and blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of like mitigating what seemed to me to be obvious, which is that the Bible, the Torah, always allows you to protect life. That's we all learned that in Hebrew school. And
I don't know if Maurice learned it in Hebrew school.
Yeah. But I think that these what I do think is lost in that conversation. I don't know if this is valid, but it's certainly real. Is that lifestyle of gathering and prayer and congregating is so deeply important to their happiness and mental health in that community. That it is not, there's not an analog in it in our life to what we're giving up. And it's very, very hard for them to spend a year giving up on what is
an analog among comedians.
I was just going to say
whose entire sense of self-worth is based on whether my last joke killed or not.
Well, okay, so let's say that. Don't we all know that if the comedians could, they would have been gathering and telling jokes and whatever it is. They would have bent the rules for themselves.
Well, I don't know. I'm also a coward. So we have two forces battling each other: the force of cowardice and the force of needing approval. And I don't know what would win out necessarily.
But I said it's not valid because the governor, he has to protect life. And if he has to play hardball with them, then he's going to have to play hardball with them. I hope he does it.
It's not fair, though, because what you're saying about them is true for all of us.
No.
Like,
Maurice, have you done comedy during this time, or have you been out of work comedy-wise?
Well, I've had a lot of pharmacy organizations asking me to do Zoom comedy shows, but I don't know how I feel about that, because when I'm at the Laugh Factory or Zanies, there's 300-400 people, and it's, you know, you get to work the room, whereas being on a Zoom call is just different. And, you know, actually last week, Zanies and Laugh Factory reached out to me to perform, but it's like the Zanies in Chicago is already a small, intimate room already. And then having it, you know, all the tables spread out is really not that
I would also add that nobody's getting laid after a Zoom show. I don't know if you're a married man, or not, but it's harder to ask a girl to come over when, you know.
Now you have a better excuse then.
Just gonna wait.
But no. What I'm saying is that Danny knows this to me better than I do. But you're talking about a life of scripted ritual, basically from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to bed. And I don't think that's comparable in our lives. And that disruption is very jarring to them. And again, I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying, like, you know, let's understand.
They're probably going to be positive. Most of them are going to be positive, and they've probably been positive for the past few months, and it hasn't changed. I'm sure there's just been the same amount of positive cases from, let's say, I don't know, April, since Purim. Let's just say from Passover, May, June, July. It hasn't changed. I think nothing's changed for them. So.
It's funny.
Sudden spike. What do you mean? Spike?
Look how I've switched. Well, hold on. Because when COVID first started, remember I was so nervous. I was thinking of editing out because I said on the air that I told my staff not to go shop at B&H. Remember I said that? And I was so worried that people were going to call me anti-Semitic because before it ever happened, I know how the Hasids and everything. They're going to have COVID. So I was like, I literally told my employees, don't go to B&H before the lockdown. It was before.
We're bigoted about that. It's a fact. They have to pray in minions of 10 people. They have 3 times a day. They have to. So what's 10 people? It usually turns out to be 30 people or 40 people or 50 people, and they're in a small room praying together. So you're right. You're very.
These fucking chaims, you can't put up with them. All right, go ahead. No, anyway, so I'm saying, like, I'm flipping because so just saying that, like, early on, even before the lockdown, I was worried about what was going to happen to the Hasidic community. And now that they really are a hotspot and getting it, you know, very harsh from the city officials, I'm trying to understand what's going on, but I think in the end they have to take a lot of the blame. They just
I mean, come on! It's like everybody's fucking disrupted. Like, this is bullshit. I want
Noam, when is there any word on the reopening of the Comedy Cellar? Maurice, I assume you're familiar with the Comedy Cellar. It is fairly well known. I know you're out there in the Midwest.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know, like, a lot of the venues, like at least where I'm at in Illinois, until there's a vaccine, they can't go to full capacity. So,
but Zanies is having shows. The
Zanies and Laugh Factory are both having shows at limited capacity, and I think it's like 25%, and I think they can go up to 50 once there's an actual vaccine.
Periel does a lot of shows at diminished capacity too.
What?
Noam, is there any word from the mayor or whomever is in charge when this is when you'll be able to do that sort of thing?
No.
Whenever that vaccine comes out,
There's no vaccine coming, right, Dr. Shaw? I mean, this nonsense that there's going to be a vaccine in the next month is
What are you talking about? They're doing tests on vaccines.
Well, there's a vaccine coming. Whether it's available in the next month just depends. Like sometimes they're able to fast track vaccines. I know a lot of the vaccine makers said they're not going to rush it just because the president wants it out sooner. So it kind of just depends on if they fall to the pressures of the president, try to push it forward to get it ready in the next month, or they just take their time and do how vaccines are supposed to. Probably, I would think February or March.
They should be paying human trials. I don't know what they're dilly-dallying for. What about this monoclonal antibodies or whatever that Trump took?
Trump used the is that the Regeneron or the Remdesivir?
Yeah, I mean, Trump went from testing positive to testing negative in like 12 days or something.
It happens to some people.
Well, maybe he got lucky. Maybe he's robust, or maybe those treatments are effective. But we I don't know that we.
What do you say, Maurice? What do you say?
It's hard to say because of the source. I don't know know who to believe, but just because of those monoclonal antibodies, I don't know that he necessarily got rid of it that fast. We don't know when exactly he got it. He could have just been, let's say he got it 14, 21 days, before he got that test. And then a couple of days later, he was already at that kind of like 14-week period, and his body would have rid of it anyway. So
my friend tested positive. They had fever for 3 days. By the fifth day, they were fine.
Yeah, I mean, I've known people. I don't know if they tested negative, but I do know people that were symptom-free after a fairly small number of days. So I just think I don't think we know that obesity and diabetes and heart, we know certain things exacerbate it. I don't think we know, but I think there's other things that we don't know. Certain blood types, perhaps. They talk about vitamin D. They talk about receptors, that some people have, other people don't. I don't think we're 100% clear on all the factors.
One thing is for sure, the Hasids were praying for Trump. We know that. So that might have had an impact.
Maybe Trump's stance, political stance is and God favors Trump. I
power of prayer, the power of people believe that.
But you never know. Anyway, we are any other topics, because we are at the end of our normal hour show.
Periel, say something ridiculous so we can all jump on you. What else? Just this first thing that comes to your head.
I just think it's so preposterous that anybody's believing this nonsense about Trump testing negative. I mean, he infected that entire White House. And also, my comedy shows do very well. Thank you very much. For the record.
I don't know if I need to explain the joke to you, or this is your.
Now, does anybody want to comment on? I know we spoke about it briefly last time. Bill Burr on SNL saying that white women have been basically, all these years
enjoying the blood money all these years,
enjoying the benefits of white supremacy and colonization and slavery, etc., and now have decided that they're going to complain about discrimination. That's essentially what Bill Burr said, and he's gotten in some trouble for it. Does anybody have any comments to make about that?
You stay out of this, Maurice. What do you think, Maurice? Did you see it?
I didn't see it, but I heard so much about it, and kind of like he eloquently explained his points. I mean, it's just one of those things that, I think now with social media, it doesn't matter if you're a white woman, a black person. Like, now people are just going to complain until, because it's you can do that now. And I don't think it's just so much just white women. I think it's just everybody. It's just now It's like complain to get your kind of way. So
why were people upset with Burr about that? That was good, solid social commentary right there.
They were upset. I assume they were upset Well, I don't know. Why were they upset by that? Well, he said something else too that was somewhat controversial, but I guess they were upset because it was seen as anti-women, it was as misogynist.
Oh yeah, he wrote the most brilliant bit about the gay month of June being Gay Pride and how Black History Month was given February, which is the worst month of the year. It's gloomy, it rains, it sucks. Nobody wants to have a parade during February, and there's only 28 days. It's the shortest month, and it's the worst month. Of course, they're going to give it to the blacks. I mean, the gays. Where they were enslaved, they only sing and dance. So it was something like.
And he said, and if you gave blacks July, then gay blacks could have 2 straight months to celebrate.
That's right. So it was the whole bit. I thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was a great.
I don't know if they have Black History Month in Australia, but certainly February is a decent month there.
Yeah, the Aborigine, don't fuck with the Aborigine. They like their February.
I would say that as far as Bill Burr's joke is concerned, it was funny, but I don't really necessarily know how true it is that white women have hijacked anything. In other words, are we seeing less racial consciousness because white women are asserting their rights, and not just white women, but women in general? I mean, in other words, I'm not seeing his point was that white women have hijacked the woke movement, have hijacked, that, and that implies that we're not paying attention to racial issues, and I don't think that's true. I think we're paying attention to everything, and I think that everybody that has a beef has a right to express that. So I don't see it. Although it was funny, I don't think that white women have hijacked anything. I think they've added their own legitimate protest.
I think that what he's getting at, I don't know if he actually gave it this much thought, but there's this whole intersectional concept, and somehow if you can become part of another oppressed group, which is women, then you can position yourself on the other side of that line. And what he's saying is that by positioning themselves on the other side of that line as women, it's kind of a bait and switch. We're losing the clarity of the fact, no, these are white people. And, yes, you're women, but you also all belong on that other side of the line, because all day long you're white, benefiting from everything white. You're there while maybe you were in the home, but you were benefiting from all the fucked up shit that your man was doing. And we're allowing women to dilute their whiteness by defining themselves by their womanhood. I think that's what he's saying, whether it's true or not. And there is something subtly about that. Women are not called to answer for their whiteness so much, except for the Karens, because they can focus on their beef as women. And by the way, before we go, we'll talk about it next week. There's a fascinating thing in marginalrevolution.com a couple of days ago, you can look it up, showing that women Uber drivers, there's 2 studies now about anonymous work, women Uber drivers, because the Uber fares are disseminated randomly by the Uber dispatching software. And there's another thing that they have there, some other kind of anonymous work. Women make 10% less than men in both these anonymous work environments, where nobody knows their gender. But for instance, in Uber, women drive more slowly, for whatever reason, won't drive in the more congested areas. There's all sorts of reasons there's all sorts of differences in just the general attitude about women, and they make 10% less. And there's another thing too, I can't remember what it is, but I'll get it for next week, where women are also making about 10% less than men, even though their gender is totally blind to the work.
And what do you extrapolate from that?
This is a dramatic fact. It's dramatic.
What do you extrapolate from that?
That's a teaser for our next episode, where we discuss.
We should get the writer of that study on the show. It's amazing.
We have Al Martin next week.
Oh,
I don't know if he has.
Hey, you know who you guys should get? You guys should get Z-Dog MD.
Oh yeah, he was gonna come on, and then COVID happened, and he got really busy.
That's kind of like how my popularity, because I did a video with him, and it got like almost 500,000 views.
If he comes on, will you come on back with him?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
He's the reason why I got so much kind of popularity and kind of, at least in the pharmacy realm and medical realm.
Well,
so, yeah, I'll definitely be on. Tell him his boy, Maurice.
We have a shit ton of comedian lawyers. I'm one of them. There's the late Greg Giraldo was another. Mike Sweeney is another. Well, the list goes on. But comedians in the medical profession are a little more rare. So this is sort of an interesting.
Hey, my friend, he's a pharmacist. His name's LeVar Walker. You heard of him?
I have not. Well, I've heard of his.
He's been on Last Comic Standing. He had a Kevin Hart special. He won the Shaq All-Stars. Check him out. He's a good dude, good friend of mine. He's also a pharmacist and hilarious.
I should have gone into pharmacy, I think. That's a good, stable profession.
Hey, us black legal drug dealers, people like it.
So I guess we will.
If Periel needs a new diaphragm, does she get that from the pharmacist? No, nothing.
No, we don't do diaphragms.
That over the counter?
Oh, I thought you don't you need a prescription for a diaphragm?
Yeah, but well, there's one, but typically I can only bill for like medication, anything that's considered like a medical device.
Can I get fitted for something like that?
Do people still use the diaphragm, or is that outdated?
That's why I said it, because it's outdated.
That's pretty much outdated.
That's a Karen thing. Hey, Maurice, I got one more question for you. When somebody comes in for like a prescription for, I don't know, not even Viagra, but for like one of this thing that Harvey Weinstein was using, like the injection, like the dick hardening injectors, or Valtrex, or something that really is a clear, that really lets you know what they got going on. What's the bubble over your head? I mean, you're like.
I remember this lady, she had a STD, and she goes, "How you doing?" I'm like, "Pretty good." And she's like, "How come you didn't say it back?" I was like, "Well, I know how you're doing." No point in me saying it back. So sometimes, my technicians, we're kind of controlled by HIPAA, so you can't say anything. And the technician will be like, "Oh, is his Viagra ready?" And I'm like, so you're always, they don't really fire technicians, but they'll fire a pharmacist quick for HIPAA, or it's just like, now I live in like a small town. So when I was in Chicago, you would help a customer, but you probably wouldn't see them for another 30 days or 90 days. But in the small town, you kind of know everybody. So like when you see like this older guy who gets he's getting his Viagra refill, you see him at a gas station with this young girl, you're like, oh, okay, that's why he needs that Viagra. Or so-and-so has herpes, and you see him at the gym, and you're just like, God, I wonder if that herpes is flaring up now. So you actually see the people in their prescriptions, so now it's a little bit weirder, but
maybe there's some issue, somebody have like a special, like that's rarer than a pharmacist with erectile dysfunction. Anyway, we gotta go.
All right.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody.
Where can we find you, Maurice? Tell everybody.
Yeah, find me mainly on YouTube, RX Comedy. Follow my channel. I have a Facebook page, RX Comedy Pharmacy page. Check that out as well. A lot of followers on there.
Can we get prescriptions there too?
No, but when I start my comedy tour, it'll be the No Prescription Comedy Tour. You'll have a free ticket.
Nice. Thank you.
All right, Danny Cohen, we thank you.
I'm on Instagram.
I saw you at the Cellar a couple of months ago. Let me know if you're going back, if you're gonna go for dinner one of these days, and
I'm going to.
Yeah. All right.
See you. Yeah.
Podcast at comedycellar.com for all questions, comments, and suggestions. And we will see you next time.
And you should email us and follow us on Instagram at Live from the Table. And Danny, where can we find you on Instagram?
Danny Cohen Comedy, and I stencil walls now. So if you're in the 5 boroughs of New York and you want me to do something to your wall, just DM me on Danny Cohen Comedy.
Amazing.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Bye, Dr. Shaw. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for having me.